If you had known anything about the true nature of the universe, anything at all, you would have hidden from it in terror.
Hello everybody, welcome back to the channel. Welcome to the channel if this is your first time. This is a book video about book covers. So this is a response video to Ben from Grammaticus Books. And Grammaticus Books is a fantastic channel. And Ben just knows exactly how to talk about books, and he's compelling, really interesting, is really insightful, fantastic channel to watch consistently. And this is actually the second version I've done of this video, because the first one I did, I pretty much summarized the video I'm responding to, which is a bit crap really, because I'm trying to encourage you to see his video. So I'm not going to make the basic point that he makes in his video. So I'm going to bounce off his video without referring back to the main point of his video because I want you to watch it, because it's a really good video. So this is a recommendation for you to watch this video, but it's a response video to Ben from Grammaticus Books talking about the modern science fiction book cover and why, in his words, according to his title, why they suck. And he investigated, well, what was happening? Why are they so different to the old vintage paperbacks? All these great illustrations, these paintings that are on these old book covers. Why is there such a difference? And he knew a couple of people in the industry, and they told him why there's such a difference. It's a really, really good video, and it really does spell out why there's a difference, and it does make perfect sense. So I thought it'd be really nice to do another video. I've done videos about book covers before. Do another video about that, but bouncing off that idea without summarizing what he says. Go watch his video. I'm going to talk about, to start with, some old paperbacks with great covers, to just give it that context of why we always talk about how great these old covers are. And a couple of examples of really boring covers from that period, and then some example of boring covers from recent times, and then some really good covers, I think, some interesting covers from now, from recent publications. So I'm going to do that, and I'm going to try desperately not to talk about my book, my first short story book, which has probably got the best cover out of all the books I've released, but I'm trying not to talk about that, so I won't mention that at all in the video. So I'll start off with two of my favorite books, but also two of my favorite covers as well. So I love these books very much, but I also really love these covers. And this first book, I've got loads of different versions of this book. So this is I Am Legend by Richard Matheson, but this is such a fantastic cover. Look at that. I Am Legend by Richard Matheson. It's got a kind of a 50s horror film kind of imagery going on there with the cover, but I love it, absolutely love it. I've got about 5 copies, I think, of this book, and I love it to death. Easily one of my favorite books, and I've done a video about the book as well, like from years back, which you may be interested in. But I love that cover. It's a really awesome cover. There's so much going on. I don't know, it just pulls you in straight away. It's compelling even without the narrative. Brilliant. So that old Corgi version of I Am Legend, it was the one I wanted to start with. This is another one that's interesting though. This is part of the Ace imprint. I'm trying to get all of the Hull Nelson Ace books, and I've got, well, I don't know, about half a dozen of them. I've got a whole shelf of Hull Nelson, but some of them are the Ace ones I'm trying to get. I'd like to get as many as possible because I really like the design. But this in particular, I think it's awesome. This is a collection of short stories that he wrote in partnership with somebody else, another science fiction author, usually one of his friends. And I just love the way that they've summarized that by having him like sitting alongside someone but facing the other way, and they're both writing, and he's obviously using an electronic device, and the electronic device is using a quill and paper, which is great. But I just think it's just an awesome design. Partners in Wonder. He's partnering up with another science fiction author. It's a really good book, but it's a fantastic cover. So that's another old vintage science fiction cover. And I wanted to just start off as well with this little bit of this video by talking about two very famous illustrators as well. So to start off with, Chris Foss. Now, I am not 100% sure this is Chris Foss, but it really looks like Chris Foss. He's got a very distinctive way of doing illustrations on the book covers. And I'll just take this down for a minute while I put some images up here. So Chris Foss has this real reputation being one of the best of the illustrators for science fiction covers. And for me personally, I think it's very vivid, iconic, makes you think about the future in space and all these different imaginative vehicles that may have been created in that world. But also, I think they're quite samey. So you can tell his style a mile off, but I think that's also part of the problem with his illustrative style. But yeah, Bob Shaw's Ship of Strangers here. I'm pretty sure that's a Chris Foss one. It doesn't actually say on the book, but I'm pretty sure that one is. But yeah, he's an interesting illustrator. But again, like I said, for me, eventually it gets a little bit too much. But the guy that's got the same kind of fame and reputation, same kind of recognition, is Bruce Pennington, and this is one of his famous illustrations. Sorry, Bruce Pennington's Earthworks, Brian Aldiss Earthworks. This has been used for a couple of other books as well. But I love that image, and in general, again, I'll put this down while I talk about Bruce Pennington. He's very famous for his the world building he does in images, and the figures he draws and the beasts that he creates, and very famous version of Dune with the Bruce Pennington design on it. But yeah, he's an interesting one to look at, and his covers are fantastic. So he's one of the reasons why these old books have such a great reputation for their covers. So just going to spin around a bunch of these other ones. So Robert Sheckley's Dimension of Miracles, one of my favourite books, and I love that cover. It's surreal but funny and intriguing, and absolutely is what the book's about. Did anyone mention Douglas Adams? No, I didn't. But yeah, Dimension of Miracles, Robert Sheckley, brilliant, absolutely brilliant. I did a video about that book if you were curious. This is quite a cool one, Spaced Out. This is an anthology, and you've got this the motion of the spaceship coming out of the guy's brain and shattering it to pieces, but also you got these like really cool it's almost like robotic humanoid with his eyes, or a certain alien humanoid. So that's really cool. This is interesting. Clifford Simak's The Night of Poodley. I don't know if you can hear Rosie. She's making a bit of a noise. So apologies for that. And my cat. The Night of Poodley. So I think this reminds me of like the Pink Floyd covers, like Wish You Were Here and stuff like that. So yeah, it could have been an influence on Hypnosis, who do those covers. But yeah, I think this is a really cool cover. I haven't read the book, so I don't know what it's like. I think they're short stories. Yeah, they're short stories. So this is I'll probably read some of these in July, but I'm not sure. This is an interesting one because it's not an illustration, but it's like a distorted photograph. I think it's quite cool. The Variable Man by Philip K. Dick. Again, short stories. But I love that cover. It's cool. There's something about this cover. I don't know what it is about the way it's drawn, and it might be the uniform images of these women, and maybe the simplicity of it, and it's all about shapes, isn't it? And it's a wraparound cover as well, which is another thing that Ben mentioned in his video, wraparound covers. But yeah, it's a really good collection actually, Beyond Tomorrow. If you ever see it, it's got some great stories in it. So yeah, I love that cover as well. There's something really cool about it. This is a really nice version of Thorns. I've seen several different covers of Thorns over the years, but I love this cover because the alien's really cool. I think I've shown this cover before, but I love that one. And a good book. I'm reading this one at the moment, Up the Line, and again, it kind of tells a story, which is quite cool, and it kind of intrigues you. This period does have a lot of semi-clad women on the cover sometimes, you know, and there's a sort of Stone Age thing that often gets put into sci-fi or sci fantasy kind of images as well. But yeah, and I love the way that Robert Silverberg's name is written like that as well. There's something cinematic about it as well. I don't know, but it's it. But I like Sphere science fiction covers, to be fair. So it's another Robert Silverberg one, The Man in the Mask. Again, I've shown this one before, but it's a fantastic cover, and it does relate to the plot as well. So that's all good. Philip K. Dick's We Can Build You. So this is about in the future they rebuilt Abraham Lincoln, so robotically, and that cover clearly illustrates that. This is not science fiction, but it's adjacent, it's fantasy, they live in the same world. And I wanted to mention it partly because it's a great cover. Spellslinger, this is one of his most famous books. But also, somebody mentioned this recently. If you mentioned this on your video recently, or if you've seen someone mention it, then I am going to be reading this really soon. And if that person wants to buddy read it, that would be cool. So I've got the first 6 books, I think it is. I don't know how many books are in the series. Probably 6, I don't know. But I want to read Spellslinger because I've wanted to read it for about 30 years. So, yeah, but it's a great cover. So there's lots of fantasy books with that kind of cover. But again, nowadays, not so much. You don't get this sort of imagery so much nowadays. So I do think that's kind of what he's saying. But again, the Philip Jose Farmer cover, sometimes they're just random. I mean, this one, it's good, but it's also a bit messy, and it's a little bit like, what does it mean? It's a bit random. And sometimes his books can be a bit like that. But yeah, so I don't know. I'm a bit divided on that cover there, but it looks good. This one, just 2 more in this little category. Callahan's Cross Time Saloon by Spide Robinson. I like this cover a lot. And this is literally about a bar that aliens go to. And I was a little bit disappointed by the book, a little bit. I was intrigued enough to read the rest of them, but I was hoping it was going to be one of my favourite books, and it is nowhere near that. It's fine, but it's not great. But I'm going to read the other ones. But I love the cover, though, and it definitely evokes the setting of the book. And the whole book is set in the bar. And then it's just stories retold by the people who go to the bar. And then just to finish off this little section of the video, what a great cover this is. The October Country by Ray Bradbury. It's my favourite cover of this particular book, but actually there's a few different... I'll show you another one. There's a really good cover there of the October Country, an American edition as well. It's really good. So yeah, there's some really good ones around of the October Country. This is one of the best Ray Bradbury books as well, I think. So there we are. So those are really interesting and evocative and compelling covers that like the context of what Ben is saying about how sometimes there's all these really, really good older covers. But I will give you a couple of examples, really crap ones. So the amount of times you'll see an anthology series with a boring cover like that, I mean, what's that? It's nonsense. But you get that a lot. The amount of times, and you pick it up and you think, oh, what's this? And then you want to have a look to see who the stories are by, and there might be really interesting authors, and it might make you think, well, yeah, like they are here. James Blish and Edgar Pangborn, Brian Aldiss, Kate Wilhelm, J.G. Ballard, Terry Carr. This is worth looking at, but the cover is really boring. And then you get a cover like this, another Philip Jose Farmer one, which is just a mess. But I would say that sometimes you do get artists that have this style. So it's a little bit of a cross between a watercolour kind of effect down here and a bit of a surrealist, Dadaist kind of thing going on up here. But A Private Cosmos, I don't know what the book's like, I haven't read this one, but it is an example of a chaotic cover that I don't really know if it tells much about the story or not there. So I wouldn't say that's a particularly successful cover, but they're often the exception, I'd say, as far as the stuff you can find in the wild that are that old. Usually they're quite interesting covers. So on to boring covers from nowadays. So a great one here is this one by Adam Roberts, Stone. I mean, look, the fact is Adam Roberts made me want to have a look at what this was about. I found this secondhand, but this cover does not invite you in, does it? It's a really boring cover. So it is a really interesting book, actually, futuristic crime book, but I haven't read it yet. But yeah, Adam Roberts, Stone, really boring cover there. And that's a recent one. And this is a kind of a Chris Foss design kind of idea. I don't think it is Chris Foss, but it's that kind of idea. Barbary Station is a book I've bought specially because I like the idea of the plot. And if I can read this soon, I'll definitely be doing a video on it. But the cover is a little bit ordinary, isn't it? It definitely sets the scene, but it doesn't necessarily make you go, oh, that's one of my favourite covers. But it does look like an intriguing book. which I'll talk about at some point. This recent new imprint of Penguin, where they brought about, what do they call it? They didn't call it anything. They're just sort of science fiction Penguin classics, and they re-released a bunch of great books that hadn't been released for a while. They've been out of print for a while, and they released this James Sitchley Jr. one. Has got a really boring cover. I mean, how that's going to attract you, I don't know. So clearly, you're going to be attracted by her name and the title and her reputation, but not the cover. That's a terrible cover, and it's an interesting imprint to look at, though. Make Room was re-released in this imprint, which I've got that version of Make Room up there somewhere, and 2 Robert Sheckley books as well, including Untouched by Human Hands, which is one of his best books. It's a short story collection, which includes The Seventh Victim as well, which is a really important book, a really important story. So yeah, I think it's a terrible cover, and I'm not that impressed by the book. Don't shoot me, but there we are. And then this goes into horror a little bit, but I'd love to know what you think of this one, because this is a little bit generic. It's got, you know, it gives the idea of what kind of style the book is, but it's practically a blank cover with just a name and a title. That's quite effective, but I don't know, what do you think? It's more of a design than an illustration. My Heart is a Chainsaw, Stephen Graham Jones, a book I need to read. But what do you think of the cover? So there's that. Well, that was the recent one, wasn't it? That's the first book I wrote, but I won't talk about that one. But it's got Ethel Pinchworthy being taken up by the alien, but I won't mention that. So just the last bit of the video is talking about some really good covers from recent times. That some like this, my first one, I bought it because of the cover. I saw that and thought, wow, that looks amazing. Zen Cho's Spirits Abroad. Found this in Forbidden Planet and had to buy it. I thought it was really interesting. So that's Chinese Dragon Effect. It's really evocative and it's just, well, oh, interesting. It's a short story collection, and I've read some of it. It's really good. So Spirits Abroad, Zen Cho. This is one that I don't know. You might think this is a bit boring. I think it works because it does take you into the book, and it is really summarizing the book, but it is more of a design, I'd say, than an illustration. Semiosis by Sue Burke. It's a really good book. It's about these spacefaring humans that go out to colonize a planet, and they think it's empty, but there's sentient plants on there, and they basically have to battle against these sentient plants for domination on the planet. It's a really good book. So I think that does tell you the setting and arguably the plot of the book as well. So yeah, that's a really good one. I really like this book. So this cover, Hull Nelson's Greatest Hits, but it is a bit messy. So I understand if someone else didn't like it. If someone said, well, it's a bit of a too much going on here, I would get that. But I really like it. There's something about it I like, and I like the way that Hull Nelson's written. There's something cool about it. You know, looks like the Goodies. English people will know what I'm talking about with the Goodies, but I don't know if anyone else would. They were like a post Monty Python comedy group in Britain, but it's good. The Goodies was written the same way. But anyway, I do like the cover of this, and I just love this book anyway. I'm so glad it came out because it's so hard to get his stuff normally, so people get a chance to read his stuff rather than finding it randomly on secondhand shops. And then there's another one here, Titanium Noir, and I think this is a really evocative cover. This is a detective story set in a dystopia. I think you really get that idea from that cover. I think it's very evocative, so I think that works really well. So this is a recent book, arguably more of a design than an illustration, possibly, but it works really well. I think that's really good. Titanium Noir. And then just got to mention Adrian Tchaikovsky. He does some fantastic covers. So these 2 books were released around the same time, and Alien Clay and Service Model. And Service Model, fantastic cover there. It really says a lot. I'm reading this at the moment. I'm just about to finish it, and it's really good. And again, like, it says a lot. The cover's great. I love it. He's very good with covers. Alien Clay was released at the same time. What a beautiful cover that is. It's fantastic. I usually go for paperbacks rather than hardbacks. I bought those two on hardback because they just come out. And I've seen this on paperback, but it's such a great cover that I don't know if I want to replace it with a paperback, which is unusual for me. So yeah, fantastic cover, Alien Clay. Really good book as well. So again, Cage of Souls has got a fantastic cover. Look at that. How evocative is that cover? Fantastic. Beautiful cover. A bit of a wraparound cover as well. But yeah, fantastic. Let's like all this that imagery there. Brilliant. Cage of Souls. And this is the first of a trilogy he did recently, and there's so much going on in this picture. This is an illustration, and it's fantastic. Yeah, he's really good at covers. So, yeah, just wanted to end with Adrian Tchaikovsky. I'm not going to mention this book at all, 10,000 Transformation. So, yeah, I think it's interesting that you've got examples of bad covers of recent times and some really good ones, I think. You've got the context of all those really good old covers, but then you've got some boring ones you get sometimes as well, and some just messy nonsense as well. So that's what I was kind of going with, but I'm deliberately not making the big point that Ben says. So if you're intrigued by what we're saying here, then go check out his video. I'll put it in the description below. But he answers the question about why the older book covers have got so much going on, and there's kind of like illustrations, why that happens. It's a really interesting subject, and he literally just answers it, and it makes it very understandable and clearly makes sense. So yeah, check that out. But in the meantime, thank you so much for watching. Stay curious, everybody. Thanks for watching.
Paint me a picture of what it's like to be